It is now time to experience the buzz, a podcast that takes an inside look at amazing people doing amazing things. Get ready for some great conversation that will be fascinating, educational, and inspiring. We will also leave room to help small businesses in a big way. Now, here's your host, entrepreneur Steve Buzzard.
Well, hello and welcome to this week's episode of Experience the Buzz podcast. Near, far, wherever you are, my name is Mike Kenobi. I'm the producer of the Experience the Buzz podcast, contrary to what the intro said. But we can't wait for you to hear this week's episode. But before we get into that, we want to apologize. The What's the Buzz is we do apologize for our little bit of a summer vacation, summer hiatus. You know, it's not something that we necessarily enjoy doing. But, you know, as these summer months roll along, folks are getting busy. But I hope that it's treating you well so far. We just celebrated the 4th of July. So, again, I hope that treated you well. And king size shout out to everybody who made it out of that holiday with the same amount of digits that they went into the holiday with. And for those of you that didn't, you didn't need them anyway. You know what I mean? It's kind of overrated. It just shows that you like to party. All that to say, as we are getting into the really, really hot summer months, and that's really exciting as we're getting into the excruciatingly hot days here in Sacramento. One of the easiest ways to keep cool, this kind of dovetails perfectly, is by taking a visit or taking a trip to see our week's guest. This week we're talking to a gentleman by the name of Matt Leatherby. And for those of us who are from the Sacramento area, you should know the Leatherbys name pretty well. It's a local chain of ice cream parlors here, again, in the Sacramento area. And I really look forward to you listening to this, whether you're an entrepreneur yourself, thinking of dipping your toe into the pool, whether it be in the restaurant industry, which is what Matt will obviously kind of be diving into, or any facet of what is an entrepreneur. I just want you to listen to the amount of attention to detail and the thought process that goes into owning a location of some kind, whether a brick and mortar, whether it be, again, for a restaurant or any other kind of business, and how you keep those customers coming back, how you keep the image fresh while also staying true to what it is that, especially for something like Leatherbys, that has been a mainstay for many, many folks, whether it be their first job or where they went on their first date. And hey, I'm one of those, right? Took my fiance on our first date to Leatherbys. So again, sit back, relax, and what a better way to enjoy this podcast than with your own bowl of Leatherbys ice cream. So fire up those Postmates, fire up DoorDash, or feel free to take a trip to any of their many locations. We'll link those addresses down in the description box down below. But, I mean, let's be real. Just fire up the Maps app and you'll find Leatherbys. All that to say, sit back, relax, and, enjoy this week's Talking Story.
All right, well, welcome in. It is Experience the Buzz, the podcast. My name is Steve Buzzard, your host, and we are so glad to be back with you. We've had a little bit of a hiatus. It's summertime, you know, a little bit more difficult and stuff. And when I say that, it's like people have got those summer vibes. But when you talk about summer, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking ice cream. And we are talking Leatherbys today. And I've got Matt Leatherby with us. Very excited to have him on board because we are going to talk about what I believe is an institution here in Sacramento. And it's here in Northern California. And Matt, we're just so grateful to have you on the show. Happy summer to you. It's good to have you on Experience the Buzz.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited too.
That's right. We are going to talk about, so, you know, kind of define for us, lay it out there for us. If someone was coming on the show and didn't know what Leatherbys was all about, you get to explain it.
Jeez, that's a tough question, but generous portions. I mean, we're obviously known for our ice cream. We've been kind of I guess you could say, a Sacramento staple for our ice cream, but we seat 200 plus people, and you know, we like putting smiles on people's faces, and full-blown restaurant, but we're known for our big giant homemade ice cream sundaes.
Absolutely. Yep. And if you don't mind, like, I'm going to take it back to my childhood, because before Leatherbys came on the scene, I remember a big thing for me growing up was Farrell's, right? Farrell's kind of had that feel too, but when Leatherbys came along, there was just something very wholesome about it, because not only was it ice cream, but you offered other things. I know the menu where you had more food. You started out with the ice cream thing. but that wholesome feel, and so maybe describe what that's all about, because I think that is really the spotlight of what Leatherbys is all about.
Right. Well, I come from a really, really big family.
Big family.
Really big family. So, ironically, my dad is one of 10 and my mom's one of 10. So you talk about running into a Leatherby, or my mom's maiden name is Johnson, but somebody I'm related to in Sacramento you're likely to know somebody that I am related to. So as far as Leatherby goes, or Leatherbys goes, it's all about being family oriented. My grandfather, when he came into the business, he and my dad, they had a couple stipulations when they opened. And one of them was like, hey, I want to see my kids. I have 10 of them. I'm on the road all the time, at his previous business. And he goes, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be with my family. I want to put smiles on people's faces. I want to change the world in some way, shape, or form. It's small or grand as that can be. And sure enough, he landed on ice cream. And if you've met my relatives, you'd know that they like ice cream. So anyway, that's a short answer, but I could keep rolling if you want.
Oh, we're going to roll, because it starts with Big Daddy Dave, right? Because I got to get all the names down. And so, Big Daddy Dave had the vision, right? He's the one that started all this in 1982. As we said, a lot of people know the first location, which is located on Arden Way. But I don't know what people realize. Like, now it's up to 5 stores, and we're going to get into that. But maybe just hit the stores and where the locations are for people.
So we have one on Arden Way, which most people are familiar with, right down the street from the mall. We have one in Citrus Heights on Sunrise and Antelope, and that's been around for close to 40 years as well. And then we opened one in Elk Grove 11 years ago, maybe, and that's right off Laguna. We just opened last summer in Lincoln, and then we opened this summer in Folsom. So a lot's happened in the last year, but we're really excited. Community has been great, and yeah.
Okay, so where does Matt fit into the Leatherby family? Like, kind of break down the family tree for me, because like you said, it is a big family. Right.
So Daddy Dave, actually just passed away a couple years ago, but he was, the patriarch, 10 kids, and my dad is the oldest of 10. So he and my dad partnered 40 plus years ago. And they had this vision, wanted to get this Leatherbys thing started. So my dad, I am the youngest of 4 kids, and ironically, just happened to, I wanted nothing to do with Leatherbys. Like growing up, I loved the free food and ice cream. My buddies loved it, but I wanted no part of it. So I went away to school, got some other jobs, and it's funny because my dad did real estate. He left the business. He would give advice or do banking or whatever, but he went and did real estate for 25 plus years. And then it was kind of in the downturn in, I think it was 2008, where he came back into the business. And that's where I had gotten out of college. I had a couple other gigs, and I was like, man, is there an opportunity here? Because my dad, has all these grandiose ideas. And I knew if he was coming back into the business, he wasn't coming just to hang out at Arden Way. So then I went to my Uncle Alan, who had stepped into the business. He's my dad's brother. They're partners. I went to the two of them, sat them down, and I said, hey, I'm doing this, that, and the other. I'm not really sure, but are there opportunities? Are you guys thinking about expanding? And so anyway, long story short, it was kind of that time where I got excited and jumped back on board, and we opened Elk Grove, I don't know, within 2 years or so.
Yeah, because see, you just explained it right there, that within a family business, that's always the big question. Do you want to be a part? In both the case of you and your dad, no, not completely, but it was always there. Right. And see, and that's what I love about family business, is that you always have that opportunity. And here you were excited to get back in. So take me through the expansion, because, the Arden Way, and then was Citrus Heights number 2, right?
So,
and then Elk Grove.
So we opened 28 franchises very quickly within like 5-year span, way back in the early 80s. And ironically, so anyway, I can go through the whole idea and concept, but my dad had actually gone and visited my grandfather went and visited a Fenton's. You ever heard of Fenton's?
Yes.
It's in Oakland.
Yes.
They have one in Vacaville. Anyway, well, they've been around for 100 years, and they have these grandiose sundaes. And my grandfather went there. He went to visit one of his daughters, went there, and was just blown away. Like I think you've met my grandfather, but he's a big old giant man, and he obviously loves dessert. And so he walks into this place, and he's like, "Oh my gosh!" And that was kind of the time when he was looking to get out of his business. My dad had just gotten out of his business, and my great grandfather had just retired. So the three of them, were out of essentially work at the same exact time, and we're like, "Well, what do we want to do?" Anyway, he goes and visits this ice cream parlor, and he's like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to be with my family. I'm tired of being on the road.
Yep.
So anyway, I'm giving you a Cliff Notes version, but they opened 28 of them, franchised it out, quickly realized this is not what we want to do. So we kind of started over. When I came back into the business, my dad came back into the business. We just said, "Hey, let's do it right. How do we want to do it?" They obviously had 30 plus years of experience of like what went wrong, what works. So I came back in, and I said, "Hey, if I'm coming back, obviously you owe me nothing, but I want to grow with you guys." And they obviously understood that. So we kind of searched around, went around town. My dad's obviously from a real estate background. He did it for a really long time. So he helped kind of lead the charge. And it was funny because we had we always wanted to be in Folsom. So I've been in the business, really been in the business since I was 25. I'm 38 now.
Okay.
And when I came back into the business, we wanted to go to Folsom. That was it. Like, this is the growing spot. This is where we want to go. But nothing ever worked out. And it's funny because a huge portion of our sole base of customers was coming from Elk Grove and going, "Please come to Elk Grove, please come to Elk Grove." And we were like, "Nah, that's not where we want to go." So anyway, long story short, the Pappas family, I don't know if you know the Pappas family, but big time real estate developing. Anyway, they came to us back in, I think we opened in 2012, and came and said, essentially, "We have an offer you can't refuse." We went to Elk Grove shortly thereafter. Building was perfect. So anyway, we went to Elk Grove, and that's kind of where it started.
Okay. This is interesting because I had this conversation. I remember it was Amy Brown. She owns Insta Physique, and she has locations in Sacramento and Roseville. And I asked her this question. I said, are there differences, right? Like, yes, you're serving ice cream, but are there differences with the stores, whether it be people that work there or people that actually go there? And the answer is yes, right?
Totally. Oh my gosh, there's so many differences. It's wild. You would not think so, but demographic is totally unique and different. And what works on Arden Way does not work at Elk Grove, and vice versa. So, it all works, but there's definitely differences. And like in Elk Grove, there's a huge Asian population, and we sell way more crab sandwiches in Elk Grove than we do in Citrus Heights. And whether that's because it's an Asian community or what, but
right,
we sell a ton more seafood in Elk Grove. So anyway, it's funny, like we pull numbers of Sundays and food and all that stuff. And yeah, you'd be surprised like what one store does versus the other. It's really unique and kind of comical.
Yeah, I love it. Let's reset a little bit. Matt Leatherby is with us with the iconic name Ice Cream, right? 5 locations, the first one in Sacramento, then Citrus Heights, Elk Grove, last year Lincoln, and just this summer they opened in Folsom. But you'd mentioned that you guys had always wanted to be in Folsom, but there was a timing thing, and obviously the timing worked out for Folsom this summer. I know a lot of people were very excited about the news coming down. Finally open. We might as well get to it. What was the grand opening like? It must have been wild.
It was wild to say the least. We're talking line out the door before we opened, and we were running out of hot water at the end of the night because, and we like the water heater is it's built for hotels, but we were going through so many dishes. It was crazy. So, morning the wee hour, or excuse me, I guess the late mid morning to the wee hours of the morning, we were just, it was cranking. It was a lot of fun, but man, after the first 3 weeks, I was asking for a vacation.
Yeah. And that's right. And we should get to the part like, what is your part, in the Leatherby franchise? And maybe you can explain that for people.
Sure. So I came back. I mean, I obviously grew up in the family business. Like when I was in high school, I was scooping ice cream cones and all that good stuff. I did dishwashing and busing and all that. But when I finally came back into the business, I was obviously really interested in expanding, came back into management. But my uncle was like, well, you're not getting off easy. You're going to start at the bottom kind of and work your way back up. So I had to go, relearn prepping, how to prepare the food and all this good stuff. So I came back, and when I was 20, 25, whatever year that was, and I managed at our Arden Way store, and then we quickly bought back our Citrus Heights store. We had a distant relative. I call him Uncle Ronnie, but it's not really. It's like my great uncle or something.
Got it.
So he was looking to retire, sells us the business back, and of course, we didn't have really affiliation other than, we shared recipes and, my uncle and him chatted all the time. But so when we bought it back, there was no like Leatherby's presence there. So I came back in, learned the management side of things, and they shipped me off to Citrus Heights. So I went there for, I don't know, a year and a half, worked there for a while. And then it was then where we were kind of toying with, well, now we have 2 stores. Are we ready to kind of look into some other, avenues? So that's where the Pappas family came to us and said, hey, we got this building in Elk Grove. Would you guys be interested? We went down there. We were not interested at all. And then long story short, we were like, this is great. So I left Arden Way, Citrus Heights, went and opened that store. And it was just crazy as well. Really rough. I learned a ton, mostly of what like not to do. Like my uncle put me in charge of all this stuff, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I was 26 or 7 at the time, or whatever it was. So I had no idea what I was getting into. I thought I was young, and I thought I was the man, and I quickly was humbled, to say the least. So learned a lot. It was great. And then ever since then, we had been talking about expanding. Well, should we do a store every 2-3 years? Let's grow, let's look. And Folsom was always the place we wanted to go. Demographic, like you have the schools, the churches, you have, it's growing. Anyway, anything you could want for our stores and kind of the criteria that we want for our stores, it was in Folsom. Yeah. So we looked and we looked and we looked, but as you know, like it's expensive there. The rent is a lot different. So anyway, we looked and we'd find places, and for whatever reason, it wouldn't work out or whatnot. So fast forward a number of years, I was frustrated. My cousin came into the business. He started growing antsy. We have a good friend that ran our Citrus Heights store that is now in Folsom. He was getting antsy. So it was a lot of, it was a group effort. And we continued to look, but it was almost like when COVID hit, it crushed all those dreams, because we were looking at numerous places at the time and very, very ready to sign deals and make things happen. And then COVID hit, and it was like, well, there goes everything, all the dreams we thought we were going to have. So anyway, we're finally in Folsom and we're excited, but yeah.
Okay, but what about Lincoln? Yeah, it does. How did Lincoln come about? Like that's a peculiar one to me.
Absolutely.
Like, it's a growing community out there in the Rockland area. But I'm going to admit to you, I was a little surprised, but I'm like, you know what? You could put Leatherbys everywhere, like Starbucks, and I'd be okay, But tell me about Lincoln.
It's funny. So we would have never pictured being in Lincoln just because it's not developed yet. Right. There's a ton of people moving out there. It's growing. I mean, I would love to live there. It's fantastic, my kind of people. But we had no intention of going there. So going back to the Pappases, and I don't mean to speak for the Pappases in any way, shape, or form, but I don't think they get mad for me saying all this stuff. So they rented us, or they lease us our building in Elk Grove, and it was like a dead center. They had Pete's Coffee in there, Subway, and then like a number of vacancies, openings, and it was kind of a dying center. There used to be a bar in there, so we moved into, I think it was a Mandango's. It was an old bar, but the center, for different reasons, it was not alive. So they brought us in there, and we were very worried about that. Anyway, we did great. Now their center is totally thriving and booming. So I think they saw it. You know, they don't need us by any means. I mean, they're doing just fine. But I think they saw what Leatherbys can draw. Like, we draw from such a wide, you know, it's more destinational than it is like spur of the moment. I mean, we get a lot of people that drive by and they're like, oh, what's this? And let's go to Leatherbys. But a lot of people come there for sporting events and community and, you know, funerals. And so we draw from such a big population, and I don't think they realize that. So we go to Elk Grove, and sure enough, like, we did fantastic, and now their center's doing great. Well, they own the land in Lincoln all around it, and they've been developing it slowly. But I think they realize, okay, well, if we bring in somebody like, you know, Leatherbys that draws from a wider place, well, then we can fill up the rest of our center, so to speak. So they kind of, again, made us an offer we couldn't refuse. And we were ready to do that prior to COVID. They were ready to sell us. And this time around, we said, well, we don't want to lease from you. Maybe we can do kind of a partnership where we lease this building, and then we can buy that property, and then the next one we can lease. And so it's not quite how it worked out, but we ended up, they sold us 2 buildings in Lincoln, and that's kind of how it all happened. So we didn't intend to go there, but I don't know if you've been out there, but the building itself, it's up on a hill. They just built high schools on both sides of the property. Our building overlooks like this huge baseball field and a football field, and it's brand new. There's only a junior, you know, it just opened last year. So we kind of looked at Lincoln. It's like, okay, we might have to float it for a year or 2 years or 3 years, but in the end, like, I think this will be, so
it's going to hit. It's like you're almost like ahead of the game being in Lincoln with everything that you described that's around it, because it is going to be eventually a big spot. So it's like you're there before the big hit comes. So I'm just curious of this eagerness, though, of being able to expand. Like, to me, like, just trying to wrap my mind around things, just like my own business, you know, you lock in. So let's say it's the Arden store, and I'm just trying to do my very best, right, to just make sure the Arden store is great. You guys have this ability to say, okay, we can expand. We can expand. Obviously, that takes a big group of people, but you're a part of that. And so I'm just curious about that, of when you guys get to that point of saying, are you already like looking at big picture, obviously with the, you know, the 28 franchises that you talked about in the early going, but you realized it didn't quite work out the way you wanted because you needed people that were Leatherby people to be running those stores, or those stores, if it makes any sense. But take me into that eagerness of seeing this big picture of Leatherbys more in multiple locations.
I think it was, so myself, my cousin Jake, who is Alan's son. So Dave and Alan are now like the primary owners of Leatherbys. My grandma still shows up. My mother, you know, goes in a couple days a week to help out or whatnot. But Dave and Alan are the primary owners. Jake and I jumped back in the business at different times, but I think they looked at us and it's like, I think they saw that, like, we want to have the things that they had and they worked really hard for. They want to make us work really hard for it, which I wouldn't ask for it any different. I'll do the same thing with my kids.
Right.
But I think, you know, the end result, like, they want to see us succeed and do well. And And with one store, like when I came back into business, I went to Alan and I said, hey, is there an opportunity? And he's like, well, yeah, there's an opportunity, but like we own one store right now. So you're going to make $17 an hour or whatever it was at the time.
Yeah.
Or I think I was making $15 an hour. And he's like, you can make $15 an hour. I'm going to pay you $3 above minimum wage. You're going to work really, really hard, but like, I don't have a job for you. So I had to kind of prove myself. Then my cousin Jake stepped back in. He was excited and he's like, well, I kind of want an opportunity. What can we do? So the two of us kind of, I think our dads realized like, hey, you know, that you can only do so much in 1 or 2 or 3 stores.
Right.
And then we also had one more guy who is now a partner. He's also one of the owners of our newer 2 stores. He's not a family member. His name's Michael Cremens,
Nice.
who you've met a number of times.
Yes.
You've done our Christmas parties and
we're going to talk about the Christmas parties because those are
Okay.
those are top shelf.
Appreciate it. So yeah, he came into the business and he kind of reinvigorated me, I'll be honest, because I had gone on for like 5 years. I was running Elk Grove for a number of years and I kind of hit to a point where it was like, we had talked about expanding and everything kept falling through and it was like, well, what do we want to do? And it got to the point for me where I was like, I think you guys are blowing smoke and this is all talk and you're comfortable and maybe I should look to get a side job or do something different. Like,
Yeah.
And so my cousin Jake and myself and then Michael, it was to the point where it was like, well, like what's next? What's the next chapter? We need to kind of push the envelope. So we went to the owners and said, hey, you guys, like we really want to start looking. So we spent probably 2 years, even more than 2 years, but 2 solid years where we were like hitting the ground, doing research, investigating. We've looked at every single town in the greater Sacramento area. We've looked in the Bay. We've looked down south. We've looked up north. So we have specs on a bunch of different cities. And Folsom was always the one that was like, whatever we do, I don't care what we do, but we got to be in Folsom. So anyway,
just in my mind, like Arden's always going to be like the number one, right? It's the classic.
Sure.
But I feel like Folsom is just going to like blast off, right? I'm not sure. Like Elk Grove probably has its own feel. Citrus Heights has its own feel. And like we talked about Lincoln needs a few years, but it also will be big. But you know that Folsom piece, like you keep talking about it, you know it's going to be big.
Right. It was the first, so we've been open, when did we open? The last week of May. So a little over a month. And I kid you not, the first 3 weeks after, like in the beginning of week 3, I kept thinking, okay, it'll slow down. Week 3, it was still so like just gangbusters that I literally, I think all 3 of us were ready to like walk. I mean, it was rough. I mean, we were just so busy. And then on top of it, new equipment, even though you assume like new equipment's perfect and brand new, everything has to be tested and tried. We had, our ice machine went down and then our 30 below freezer, our blast freezer was acting finicky and you have employee problems. I hired more employees than I've ever hired for any of our stores at Folsom. It was 100 and it was over 100 employees.
Wow.
And since day one of opening, we've been hiring and hiring and hiring. I think we're over 130 employees right now in our store just because we are so stinking busy. So it's been awesome. It finally slowed down. We're starting to Folsom finally gave us a little break and we're starting to see like, okay, there's a rush here and then we have a little break and then there's a rush here. So we finally got our bearings, but it was just nonstop. And then every single morning you're preparing food for the busiest Saturday of the year every single day.
Yeah.
And you know what that does to staff, and they're coming in and having to do the same thing over. And it was tough, but the staff's awesome.
Yep.
Great staff, great shift leads, managers. So huge team effort, but we finally have a little bit of breathing room, and it's been really nice.
Yeah, but again, I mean, you're learning so much, even through like a different kind of experience where you're being super busy, which is a great thing. But like you said, can be taxing as well. Right. And so you mentioned employees, and that's a perfect segue. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about that aspect, because when we talk about the ice cream and we talk about the hometown feel and the family-oriented, business and everything, the employee part, I think, is very special at Leatherby's. It has been since its existence, and I'm going to let you define it because I think it's pretty cool that people want to hear. So we're going to take a break, hear from our sponsors. We got 3 of them. We're going to be saying goodbye to one of them, so we're going to give them an extra salute. That's Little Whale Swim School. This will be their last broadcast as a sponsor, and of course, we've loved having them, and of course, the others are 5 Stitch and Print, along with Pit Boss Jerky. We're going to get a little bit more on them, and then come back with this guy, Matt Leatherby, as we get ready for segment number 2 here on Experience the Buzz. Don't go anywhere. All right, great segment there with Matt Leatherby's. Man, I mean, isn't it so fun to talk Leatherby's ice cream? Indeed it is, and we've got more to come from Matt, a very extensive segment as we, again, pull the curtain back on this great franchise here in Sacramento. We want to thank our sponsors. We are saying goodbye to one of our sponsors. We're very happy that they were able to be with us for such a long run, and that would be Little Whale Swim School. A big thank you to Anya Hall, who was actually featured on this program in episode 6. You know what? Listen, they've got expansion possibly going on, and so monies need to go elsewhere, and I love that and respect that, but did want to thank Anya for her participation as a sponsor. They are located at 4106 El Camino Avenue, and you can find them at littlewhaleswim.com. Also want to thank our original 2 sponsors that are still with us, Pit Boss Jerky, as well as R5 Stitch and Print. R5 Stitch and Print, all your apparel needs. A lot of what you see, like right here on the video side, has been Troy Rousey. He is the owner, featured in episode 25. You can find them at r5print.com. And then last but not least, Pit Boss Jerky, Joe Green, featured in episode 26. A lot of great things going on for Joe Green, and we're very excited. They have now knocked their menu down to 11 flavors, and Experience the Buzz is now called Buzz Experience. That's right. We have a flavor named right after this show. Other good ones, Raspberry Apple Chipotle, along with Island Teriyaki, and then the originals that started it all for Joe Green. So there you go, our sponsors. Big thank you to Little Whale Swim School. And of course, it's time to get back to the conversation with Matt Leatherby. So let's not waste any time. Can't wait to hear more about Leatherby's ice cream.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back. We are with Matt Leatherby, and we are talking, yes, Leatherby's Ice Cream, an institution here in Northern California. And I have to say Northern California because for most of us, we know the iconic location, which will be Sacramento on Arden Way near the mall, right? We all know that one. But of course, there are other locations. We mentioned Citrus Heights and Elk Grove. Last year, Lincoln, and just recently, earlier this summer, Folsom. And Matt Leatherby is a big part of that. He's got a piece in every one. So, he's not just the manager of one store. He's kind of doing a lot of things. And he's within this huge Leatherby family that really, like we said, is an institution here in Sacramento. And Matt, I'm very curious to dive into the employee part, because to me, it's one of those things like where you talk with someone at some point, they probably worked at Leatherby's. Now, I will tell you, I didn't work at Leatherby's, okay, but I have worked in the restaurant. But I had a girlfriend that worked at Leatherby's. I had many friends that worked at Leatherby's, so there's always those like couple degrees of separation. Can you speak to that? Because I think it's a big deal with your stores.
So each of our stores, at any given time, we probably employ like 100 employees. Give or take, like our winter months, kids go back to school and obviously we slow down. But give or take, we have right around 185 maybe. Folsom is obviously more than that. We've just been really busy. But hiring, obviously since COVID, as you can imagine, it's significantly changed the hiring world. but we have always had numerous applicants. So we've kind of prided ourselves on the employees we get, but honestly, we get so many applicants that we get to choose like the cream of the crop from every single neighborhood. So I like to think we do a really good job hiring, but not everybody's perfect, but we have a lot of great, I don't want to say kids because we have tons of adults too. But like we have high school kids, we have college kids, we have kids at Sac State and Sac City and Jesuit, Rio, every single high school around. And then we have folks supporting themselves. I have numerous 40, 50, 60-year-old people that work for me too. And so, I think it's the best place in the world to work, but we have an advantage for sure because we don't just hire, one, it's not like all mid 20 range or all, 6-year-old waiters or whatever. Like we get high school kids. I have a 15-year-old working for me right now, a few 15-year-olds working for me right now. And then I have 68-year-olds working for me. So, we have I guess we're just unique in that way. And yeah, we get so many applicants that it's not easy, but, I can sift through a number of applications and say, no, yep, you're the one.
Interesting, because that's what I wanted to find out is the process. Is there something special within there that obviously you're looking for? How do you know? That's a lot of people to go through. That takes a lot of time. And if you're trying to get the cream of the crop, what are those things you're able to pull from, whether it be straight from an application or an in-person interview that takes place?
Yeah, it's kind of both. You don't really know. It's funny because, they don't let you see anybody on an application. Like nobody, it's illegal to send your picture on an application or for me to ask for a picture on an application now. Right. Mm-hmm. Which, makes a difference, doesn't make a difference, I guess. So, we always require everybody to come in. Like I wouldn't just do a phone interview. I wouldn't really want to do an over the phone, even if it was like a FaceTime. I have done those because, people are at college or whatever, but I always like to meet people. Sometimes I will do 1 or 2 or 3 interviews depending on, like I see something, but I'm like, there's something off with this kid. Mm-hmm. And I'll send them to somebody else. And if they come back to me, I won't say a word. And my general manager or whatever says, there's something off with it. Well, there's something off and we don't really know why,
and that's enough to say, no, thank you.
Yeah. So, we do pride ourselves in our hiring. We definitely believe in molding and shaping young people.
Okay. Yep.
So like there's a whole element, like it's different now when I get a kid come in versus 10, 15 years ago, as you probably are well aware, where a lot of it is because of technology and they're always on their phones. There's not the element of like, I'm going to wear a suit and a tie or a dress-up shirt and come in and shake your hand and look you in the eye. That a lot of young people do not do that anymore. So it's funny, like what I used to never let fly 10 years ago, where I'd be like, dude, get out of here, go put some clothes on. They'll sometimes come in and they're just went to basketball practice, and I'm like, all right, I'll let it slide. Hey, come on in, yeah, let's talk, and you get to know them. And so anyway, I don't have all the answers by any means,
right.
But I think
so. Is it safe to say you're during the time now you're going to give a little bit more grace just because of the world and how it has changed?
Totally.
And yeah, it would be nice to be old school because hard work will never die. Okay, hard work will never die, and I'm sure that's one of the staples that you guys have when someone is employed, right?
Totally.
But in terms of the hiring process, like you said, you want to see, even if it's, they check all the boxes, even if they don't. You're going to be willing to say, maybe we'll give them the shot. Maybe this is the something that can get them out of whatever that is holding them back.
100%.
Yeah.
And there's been so many people where it's like, this guy probably won't work out, and I'm just going to give him a shot and see how it goes. And they shock me, and they're the hardest working individual in the store. And I'm like, dude, thank God I hired this kid. So there's definitely an element of surprise all the time. I'm not perfect. I think I'm pretty good at hiring. Not all my GMs look for the same thing or have the same mentality I do when it comes to hiring. So sometimes I'll make them like call me if they have questions, and or I'm the one that has to do the second interview, because I don't, I want to continue what we have, and we're kind of on an upward hill, and there's nothing worse than going up and just coming right back down. So,
right. We don't want to go back down. We want to stay up there. Stay up there.
No.
So this is all depicted so very well when we do have the Christmas party. So you guys have asked me to be the DJ the last couple of years.
You've been
and
awesome.
it is so much fun. We do it downtown at a pizza parlor. And, you see these groups coming in from the different stores. So in this case, the last 2 years, it's been from the 4 stores. And it speaks to what you were talking about in the first segment where, I asked you, is it different, in each location? You're all, heck yes, with a capital Y. You see the same thing here. You do see the differences, yet when they come together, I noticed, like, it's definitely a team. Like, it is a team. And so I have to imagine you guys really stress that even though you're in these different locations, that you can really bring it together, and we are Leatherbys as a team.
Right. No, big time. I mean, when we, like the last 2 years especially, that's the ultimate goal, is how fast can we get the teamwork aspect in line, because you're training over 100 employees and they all want to do it their own way. A number of employees came from other stores, so it's like, well, I want to do it the Citrus Heights way, and I want to do it the Elk Grove. So there's like, we have to get the teamwork aspect as fast as physically possible. Otherwise, like we crumble, and especially opening a new store, it takes a really long time. I mean, it's longer than I would want it. So like even today, I have a couple of nieces working over there, and they come home every night and they have, well, this person's not doing this, and she didn't ask me this, and this girl does it different because she's from Citrus Heights, and this girl does it different. And you're like, okay, how are we going to figure it out? Because ultimately it has to be Team Leatherbys. It can't be Team Lincoln, Yeah. So, I mean, I would say training, the biggest first and foremost thing for us is like, dude, we gotta get the teamwork down. So anyway, it's
not
interesting.
Easy,
but
no, it's not easy. And so, with dealing with, and I will say, I mean, this is just from my perspective, there are definitely a lot more younger people I feel that work at Leatherbys, if the percentages, if we were going to say, and I think that's a cool thing because they want to do that. And you get kids, I can imagine, that are coming in and out, going to school, this and that. And so with the turnover, like, how do you deal with that? Like, you must have a system in place where you can kind of keep things steady, where you're going to have your people that are year round, but you're going to have so many people coming in and out, especially the young people.
Right. The funny thing is we don't have a ton of turnover. Like, our employees, I mean, we've read all the studies and, done our own studies of like the typical fast food joint where it's like, they don't last for more than whatever. I haven't looked at it in a while, but it's like 2 months or 3 months or a 6 month gig, and the turnover is crazy. We don't have that. I think we have a really good, we have a great system where you can move up very quickly at Leatherbys. So even within your own position, there's promotional positions, right?
Okay.
So, we have captains where you'll come in as a dispenser or a griller or whatever, and once you're proficient at X, Y, and Z, you can move up and receive tips from your server, right? And then the next step, you're jumping to washing or bussing or serving or whatever it is. So we actually, our retention is phenomenal, but seasonally, part of the reason we hire so many high school kids is because in the winter, we get much slower, and they only want to work on the weekends anyway. So it actually benefits us significantly, because when we need to cut down our staff, we never lay people off. We don't need to, because Monday through Thursday, our sales are, let's say they're cut in half. I don't need all those high school kids. They can't work anyway. They're in football and soccer and they got homework or whatever. They only want to work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we're very busy, year round on those days. So it actually works out incredibly well. And, I have a number of people that work through high school. I have numerous people that work through college. I have people that have worked their way through college and don't want to leave because they want to go get a job at the bank, and they realize, wait a minute, I make way more money waiting tables at Leatherbys than I would having my big boy job at the bank. So, man, so, I mean, yeah, we have turnover, and every year kids leave or graduate or whatever. But I think comparatively, looking at other restaurants, I would think that it's much less.
Nice. Okay. And do you have kids try to do like different aspects? So you have obviously your waiting staff, the people that scoop the ice cream, right? And then obviously you have the kitchen staff. Are those the three breakdowns of the restaurant?
So there's a few. So we call them dispensers of sundaes. So they're the ones that are making your sundaes, right?
Dispensers of sundaes. I love it.
Right. So you have dispensers. We have our grill staff, our kitchen staff. We have some people that only do the prep work in each of our stores. So usually, like if you work in the kitchen, a lot of times, like let's say 5 out of 10 of those individuals, they also know how to prep, because on a Saturday night when you run out of something, like we'll go cut the lettuce or whatever, right?
Right.
So we have our grill staff, our dispensers of sundaes. We have washers and bussers, which is kind of one and the same, but you're in the washroom until you can prove yourself, and then you come on the floor. And if you don't prove yourself on the floor, like, well, you're going back to the washroom, right? So our hierarchy, actually, we're kind of backwards, where we start people making sandwiches, making ice cream. You move to washing, you move to bussing, and then waiting and or shift leading. So,
which makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I worked at Cask and Cleaver, and I worked at TGI Fridays. Those were my two. And yeah, you started at the bottom. You started as dishwasher. And I remember those days. They were tough, but it was so cool when you got the promotion to busser, or in my case, bar back, and then eventually become a waiter. And when you become a waiter, it's like, okay, I made it in this franchise, right? And then from there, you get tips and everything. So that makes a lot of sense. But there's another aspect that I'm very curious about when it comes to Leatherby's. Somebody's got to make the ice cream. Who does that?
And then we have an ice cream maker. So in each of our stores, you have a full-time ice cream maker. And then during the summer, you typically have one or two that do part-time, because you're running it minimally 7 days a week during the summer. In the winter, I think you can typically get by with 5, depending on how rainy or cold or whatever. You know, however good the ice cream maker is, sometimes you get away with, 3-4 days, and he crushes it, and he can get a few days off or whatever.
How good does the ice cream maker have to be? Because it has to be Leatherby's ice cream, right? You got the recipe and everything. I'm very curious about that, because it'd be cool, like, if someone asked me, hey, what do you do? I work at Leatherby's. What are you? I'm the ice cream maker. Like, I feel like that would almost be the best position in the company.
The funny thing is like, if I had if my dad and my uncle came and said, hey, we're willing to pay you what we're paying you right now, like, what position do you want to do? It would be the ice cream maker. You get to go in there, you get to put your headphones on, or your music on, and you get to just make ice cream. And then it's hot because you're like making all the ice cream, pouring all the products, stirring all the products, and then you get to walk in a freezer that's -30. Like, it's the best job in the house. So it does take a lot of training, for sure. I made ice cream in high school. I was like the assistant guy during the summer, where I just do like the vanillas and the chocolates and whatever, just to catch them up. So it's not rocket science. Like, they got to watch their machine. They got to make sure that their runs, like, I can't be doing peanut butter ice cream before I do the vanilla, because then I got to wash the machine. And every time you wash the machine, you're cutting out 35 to 45 minutes of production. So, like, there's definitely an art to it, where they got to, every single day they come in, they count their freezer, they start vanilla right when they get in the door. They come in, they write their list. It's like, okay, I'm low on these 7 flavors. How like minimal, or how many flavors can I do without a rinse or a wash in between? Or, so there's like an art to it. Every ice cream maker like has his own way of kind of doing things. Like, it's supposed to be the same way, but every single one of them like wants to put their little spin
little
on it or whatever.
tweak on it and everything.
Yeah.
And remind people of how many flavors there are at Leatherby's.
Oh, dude. We have we probably make over 100 flavors a year. But any given time, you probably have, 30 some odd flavors, something like that.
Okay.
I
was going to say the only number you don't want to say is 31. 31. Don't say 31.
Yeah. So we have our main flavors, which is, let's say 25 or 30 flavors.
Yeah.
And then we do specialty flavors every single month. So we line it up. Hey, what do people want? And we have like a yearly, little map that the ice cream makers have to follow. And hey, we're coming out with these specials this month. Like we make our mint, not our mint Oreo, our what is it called? Anyway, we do one for like the Leprechaun Sundae. We do the Lemon Berry Bliss over the summer. We do a s'mores one over the summer. So he's got to be Johnny on the spot because we have all these specials that come out for a month at a time or whatnot. So it's tough. During the summer,
this is the behind the curtain stuff that to me is just fascinating. Like right now, I am geeking out on the ice cream maker. I think that is so cool that there's one established or two established people in each store, and they are so very important. The other aspect too is the sauces. Like, come on, the Leatherby's caramel sauce, nothing touches it. Like nothing. That's coming from me, and I'm speaking for probably thousands of people. You would agree, right?
I would agree. I'm a huge chocolate guy, but our caramel is like to die for. So it's funny because people come in and go, "Oh no, I don't like caramel. I just want the hot fudge sundae or the chocolate sundae or whatever." I always bring a side of caramel, and I'm like, "Hey, just
try it.
Just try a bite. If you don't like it, no problem. I'll take it back." And sure enough, they're back in the next week getting the caramel sundae or whatever. So yeah.
So does the ice cream maker make they make the sauces too?
Correct. So he does the we have a thin sauce for our shakes. So like what we put into our chocolate milkshakes, right? It's a fudge, but it's much thinner, else it would be terrible to blend up or whatever.
Right.
And then he does our caramel and our fudge. So our hot fudge, I actually just had a guy that was super angry at me the other day because he was so mad. He got chocolate sauce in his, to-go bag or whatever, and he asked for hot fudge. And I go, I'm super sorry to disappoint you, but all you got to do is throw it in the microwave. It's identical. One's just hot. But anyway, side story. Sorry. But yeah, he makes the sauce. We homemake a number of our other sauces, but he just does the caramel and the chocolate.
Okay. I know there's different, but let's just go Arden Store. Can we give a shout out to whoever the ice cream maker is?
He actually just retired.
He just retired? What?
Yes.
No.
He left 2 weeks ago. He's trying to get into movie making, filmmaking, but he's been our ice cream maker for like.
Okay, well let's give him some love. Let's give him some love.
His name's Cody. Yeah, he did a great
Cody.
job.
So are you currently looking for that position, or has it been filled? Are you making the ice cream?
No chance. I mean, that does happen occasionally, but it's not by choice. We have 2 people tag teaming it right now.
Okay.
We'll probably look for somebody here shortly that'll take it on full time.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go down the rabbit hole, but it's just a fascinating rabbit hole that I just absolutely love. So, okay, so COVID, I think the biggest takeaway that I will share with you that I loved was the drive up.
Right.
I love the drive up. That was pretty cool to be able to drive into a spot, someone come out and help you, whether they took your order or you did it online. What were some other big takeaways for you guys through that helped you going forward? What were some things you guys took away?
Honestly, you could probably do a whole podcast on like my takeaways for COVID. It taught me like what we were capable of doing. I remember that first week when COVID hit and they're like, hey, shut down and you can't have anybody inside. I mean, probably same as you. You were like, well, what am I supposed to do? And like, do I sit on my couch or, gosh, I have kids and a family and a mortgage. And so I definitely went through a few days of that. And my Uncle Alan walked in. It was probably like day 2, day 3. I'm sure he did not sleep a wink. And he walks in, and like, God bless him, he walks in and goes, "This is going to be great. I got the best team." Like, just high energy. He walks in, I'm ready to cry and thinking I need to go on unemployment and look for a new job. And he goes, "This is a great problem to have. We sell ice cream and everybody loves ice cream, and let's get our heads together." Anyway, he goes nuts. And it was like exactly what I needed to hear, right? Like any good boss does, right?
Yeah.
So he walks in, does this whole, and I know, I mean, I went home, I know reality. He's probably at home thinking all the same things I'm thinking, but he did what any good boss does and walks in and like gets the team going. So all of a sudden we're reinvigorated and we put our minds together. My wife, I don't know if you knew this. I know you know my wife. She runs our social media. And so, honestly, I've told her this and reluctantly, but she is like a major, if not the sole reason Leatherbys is still, sorry, I got a little thing here, operational today. So she did all our social media and had these amazing ideas of what we could do on social media to promote Leatherbys and to show who we are, what we represent, what we're going to do. And so the first week, she goes, "Hey, all your guys," so I worked at Elk Grove at the time, and sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here.
No, it's okay.
I have all these kids at Elk Grove who are all like literally probably 25 out of 85 kids, maybe more than that. It's like half of my staff at the time was in dance. Like they all dance. And, they dance for school and whatever. Well, she calls me up and she goes, "Go get 10 of your best dancers at your store. We're going to film a video. We're going to make it awesome. And we're going to show them what you're going to do outside of your store. We're going to show them the whole bagging system, the operations, the back of the house, da-da-da-da." Anyway, I'll have to send you the YouTube video, or not YouTube, the Instagram, whatever. So we filmed this video, and my kids, it's awesome. It's a 1-minute video where we're like, they're in the back flipping burgers, but like dancing at the same time. And then it gets bagged up. The girl runs it over to the dispensing counter. They're making, the sundaes at the same time, bagging it up. And then we run it out to the car. And the entire time, these kids are dancing. We're in these like dance recitals and competitions and whatever outside of our store. And anyway, we make this video and it goes viral. And
my gosh.
So she comes up with like, I don't know how many of these videos, and says, "Okay, we're going to promote your flavors and we're going to do more specials and we're going to do graduation Sundays because graduations this year, kids don't get to go graduate. So we're going to make them a graduation Sunday and we're going to show." Anyway, she had like my wife, she's so gifted in this area. Anyway, so she like literally saved our livelihood. Like,
well, it's being proactive, right?
Totally.
Like you said, you're going to have the moment, right, where you got to internalize, like, okay, what's going on? Right. But then you got to have that moment where, whether it's you or, like you said, in this case, uncle coming in, that just like it gives you that shock that you need to say, "Okay, let's do it." And what does this look like? And then you just do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's so good to see businesses like yours that really got through it. Like, we know a lot of businesses didn't make it.
It was terrible.
And not to say that they failed. There's going to be other levels of reasons that those things happen. But the ones that did make it were the ones that I think that were very proactive in saying, "Okay, we've got a problem. What's the solution? What does it look like?" Right. So that's very cool.
Yeah, and
very cool.
Honestly, there were so many. There were so many integral people that helped us along the journey, that 2-3 years or whatever it was. Just the ideas. I mean, we would have a weekly meeting and say, "What are we doing this week and how's it going to be better?" I mean, if you remember at our Ardenway and Citrus Heights location and our Elk Grove locations, like, we built these little tent cities out front, and we had these, parking lot, whatever, like, we had to do that. It was miserable, but like, it was either that or do we want to go broke and sit on our couch and complain about it? Or do we want to be the change and make a difference and get society feeling like, well, hey, I want to go out and I want to enjoy my life still. And so there were so many things, and I could go on and on and on, but yeah, I mean, just the ideas, like I was telling you earlier, in opening our Lincoln and our Folsom stores, it allowed for new opportunities. And we had some key people that were key during COVID, especially, that they got to have opportunities, and now they're general managers in our stores. So like we have some awesome employees that have stepped up. And so that's where it's like, it's really exciting for me for the future. Like, I don't know if I can open another Folsom location. It was so rough. Like, it was so awesome, but so rough.
Yeah.
But like,
right.
but I have all these employees that are stinking awesome that I want to continue to help and let them grow. And I don't want to let them go, like right. When they're like, hey, well, I got to go get a big girl job or whatever. I'm like, no, like, I want to be your big kid job,
Mm-hmm.
So
anyway. It's an interesting aspect from their perspective of how they see it. Like, it seems like it would be a transitional thing, but you're saying, well, wait, no, there's actually a future here. And that's what, going back to the Christmas party where you guys do the awards, like, you are plucking out who your next leaders are going to be. And I think that's a cool thing, but it's still got the Leatherbys, the family, like, at the helm. And so I think that's what makes it work so beautiful. So the one thing that we really haven't touched on is the menu. I'm sure a lot of people out there would be curious to know, like, what are your best sellers? Now, you made mention that it's different in different stores, but I'm curious on an overall scale. Like, let's talk ice cream first. And you can mention sundaes, you can mention flavors or whatever. What are some of those top items that people get?
So as far as flavors, it will vary a little bit per store, but our vanilla, hands down, sells the most. Like, you have
That's
vanilla.
Crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's vanilla.
It's vanilla. It's a good vanilla, but like, you think about how many sundaes have vanilla in it, right? Like, the Rachel's Hot Fudge comes with, all of our old-fashioned sundaes come with vanilla, right?
Yeah.
Most of your shakes are a vanilla base, and you add strawberries, you add the chocolate, you add the coffee, or whatever, right?
Yep.
So you sell a ton of vanilla. Your banana split has vanilla in it. But our most popular flavor is, like, hands down, the Allen's Black and Tan. It has toasted almond and vanilla in it. Toasted almond is probably like the second flavor, which is like next to vanilla. It sells the most, and part of the reason is because of the Black and Tan. And then it has our homemade chocolate and our caramel in it. So, like, dude, I mean, if you don't like it, like, something's probably wrong.
I've had a handful of those.
Yeah. So that's hands down the most popular sundae. And it's actually ironic because this is like the laughing, the ever-going laughing joke amongst our management team. So all the Leatherbys, as you know, are built like gladiators. Like, they love ice cream, big men. And then you have me, where I'm 5'8", 170 pounds or whatever. Well, ironically, my sundae is the Matthews Small Sundae. And so every 3 months, when we talk about the menu and redoing the menu and what are we going to add, what are we going to subtract, or whatever, it's always like, well, I always get a smile on my face, and I go, hey, should we change the name of the Small Sundae?
And they go, nope.
Or can we give it to somebody else? And they all laugh, and, like, everybody knows it as the Matthews, right?
Yeah.
But the funny thing is my sundae sells the most of any sundae. So
let's go.
At the end, I win, and it's not a small sundae. So that's always my, like, hey, well, I'll be the small one, but at least I'm the winner, But yeah, the Black and Tan is definitely the most popular as far as, like, everybody talks about it. We sell a ton of them, but our small sundae, because it's like our medium sundae. And I think people assume that they're getting a small sundae, and then it's actually very, very large. Yeah. It gets ordered the most, and my numbers are the best. So
very cool, very cool. And then lastly, there's food items too, which what was that part of the? I'm trying to remember back, like, the early days. I felt like it was just ice cream with maybe a couple of, like, kitchen items, but then it grew into something bigger, right? Am I right on that?
No, definitely. So our ice cream sundaes, even now, so none of our sundaes have changed other than, I guess I phrased that wrong. We've added tons of new ice cream sundaes. None of the originals have gone away except for one, the family special. We'll still make it for you, but like we don't make it because it's like a nightmare to make. All of them have remained exactly the same dishware size. Some of them have gotten bigger. None of them have gotten smaller. They're all the same because we believe in this nostalgia and having the big giant sundaes.
Right.
We've added but originally we started with just big sundaes. Like we didn't have the petite, we didn't have the little brownie delight. So over time we kind of said, well, not everybody can eat the Daddy Dave's banana split and the Rachel's hot fudge, So even though we didn't want to sell little sundaes because we love the wow factor, we also realized like, okay, well, we can't have grandma that's 98 like crushing the Daddy Dave's banana split. So anyway, we evolved and we got some smaller sundaes. And then our food, we started with very, very simple sandwiches, and we served them with like potato chips. And the sandwiches were very small. It was just mayonnaise and lettuce and turkey, peanut butter and jelly, egg sandwich. So we had a variety of probably 20 sandwiches, but they were all totally simple. And it was because they were there to complement the ice cream, because we want people to come in there and enjoy a sandwich and get the ice cream. And if you sell them a big giant sandwich, well, they're not going to get the ice cream. Anyway, so we've obviously evolved since then, and now we want our food and our ice cream to complement each other, because like a lot of people like nowadays, like I'm a total foodie. I think there's a lot of foodies out there. So we also want to be in the market. Like we don't want to just have little rinky dink sandwiches, like it was just a turkey sandwich that you can make at home. Well, the reason we made it like that was so that you could get the ice cream. Well, we realized over time, it's like, well, what if we spruce it up a little bit, and then we spruce it up more and spruce it up more, and it didn't change anything. Actually, it helped everything. Our image was better, and now we're doing a lot more. And it's funny because we always, like when COVID hit, we went to a COVID menu where we scaled everything back down, and we only sold certain items. And it was like, it's so funny. We always talked about going back to the COVID menu because it was so easy. And now we've like added a bunch of stuff, and it makes it hard again. But like you have demands, and you have every single restaurant competing around you. And it's like, well, if you're not constantly challenging yourself, they're going somewhere else,
Right.
So
Right.
we want to still remain like the old fashioned look of having old fashioned sundaes and old fashioned sandwiches that like you don't go anywhere and get an egg salad sandwich anymore. You don't get the tuna and egg sandwich, like the combos. You don't get those. So we want to kind of stick to our roots, but at the same time, like, we need to be in business to like look good and sell.
And stay in business. That makes sense.
Right.
Makes perfect sense.
Right. Our menu is also designed, and sorry, I don't mean to keep rambling, but our menu is also designed. We don't cater to one group of people. You think about certain restaurants, it's just like a genre, like mid-20s to 30s or over 50. Like we cater to everybody. We don't want anybody to feel alienated. Every race, color, creed is welcome at Leatherbys, and our menu is designed in the same way. So you'll have sandwiches on there where our younger general managers are like, can we please get rid of this sandwich? And then you have like Dave and Alan who are like, that's a Midwest sandwich. No, my 90-year-old grandma and aunt, they come in. So, and we get it. Like, I mean, we see both sides. You come into lunch at Leatherby's and you see a lot of senior citizens. And then you come in at night and you see the young crowd. So, when there's a lot that goes into our decisions when we remove something off our, we might not have a lot of numbers, but there's a lot that goes into, a decision when we remove something off of Leatherby's menu.
Big deal.
You can offend somebody. Yeah. So anyway, sorry to ramble there, but
no, that's okay. This is getting the full picture of everything. And as we kind of wrap up this great conversation, which, by the way, I'm very thankful that you've been able to give us the insight that I think a lot of people have been looking for, especially the ones like myself that know Leatherbys but don't know it the way that you've been able to explain it to us. You're a business owner. You're a leader within the Leatherbys franchise, and people out there, whether it's restaurants or any kind of business, I always like to seek the wisdom and advice of someone like yourself that you would give to someone, and what that would be. Someone who's young out there that maybe is just saying, man, I'd like to start my own business or whatever it might be. What would you say to them?
You got to be crazy to jump in the restaurant business, like really, really crazy. I didn't know what I was getting into. I love what I do. I love working with young people. Fantastic, but it's not a 9-to-5 job. So if you're getting into the restaurant business, you have to have a couple screws loose. But I love what I do. Most restaurants most companies that have family involved, they never work out. And we've managed, I think in large part due to our faith, but we've managed to work together, and it's been a total blessing. So my job, I love my job. Somebody jumping in the business, I would not recommend it, but by all means, like if you want to get your feet wet, like walk a day in my shoes and come talk to me, and yeah.
Yeah, and being a Leatherby, I think that's a great way to end this, is being a part of a family, like I said, that is truly iconic. If we were to have a Mount Rushmore, right? There's so many great families in Sacramento, and I'm not just talking about, 4 groups of families. I would expand it because there's a lot of them. I definitely think there's a place for the Leatherbys. So being a part of that family, what does that mean to you?
It's a total blessing. No family's perfect, as you know. I would never claim that my family's, we're far from perfect, but beautiful family. I love my family. It's a giant family. It's a love-hate relationship every single day, but working with the family members especially the ones that I work with, it's a total blessing. I get to work with my dad, my mom, my uncles, my aunts, my grandma. I see her every single day. So it's a total blessing at the end of the day.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Matt, thank you so much for the time. I think this has been outstanding, and I appreciate, again, pulling back the curtain for us on Leatherbys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it.
Okay, we'll take a final break. I'll be back with a final word. Don't go anywhere. This is Experience the Buzz.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
All right, so there you have it. Big thank you to Matt Leatherby once again for sharing his story within the Leatherbys franchise. Again, 5 locations. We've got Arden Way in Sacramento. We've got Citrus Heights. We've got Elk Grove. We got Lincoln, and the newest, you got to check it out. It is in Folsom. Haven't had a chance to go there yet, but definitely will do that in the near future. And of course, we'll list everything in the show notes for you as far as locations and where you can find Leatherbys if for some reason you are visiting them for the first time. Also want to let you know that we're very excited to have you on board if you are a subscriber. If not, it's very easy to subscribe and share. And we also come to you both audio and video. Audio, all the platforms you can name. Obviously, the most notable would be Apple and Spotify. Google will probably be a close third in there. And then on the video side, check out our YouTube channel from Experience the Buzz. And don't forget to check out First Look, our heavy metal portion under the umbrella of Experience the Buzz. So that's going to do it. That's all I got for now. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for joining Steve this week on Experience the Buzz. Steve would love to hear from you. Leave a review or contact Steve directly with any questions at scbuzzard@gmail.com. To see the other adventures of Steve Buzzard, be sure to visit buzzardball.com.